Hey everybody, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we have some much needed Primarch talk with the Primarch of the Night Lords himself, Konrad Curze, the Night Haunter. And we're taking a look at one of the most intriguing scenes in his entire story, the forgiveness of the Emperor. Spoiler warning to begin, the events we are discussing today are from the Horus Heresy Primarch series novel Konrad Curze, The Night Haunter by Guy Haley. As always, I really recommend you read the story for yourself first, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. Not only that, we help to support the great Games Workshop and Black Library, because without them, we don't have this amazing lore to talk about. I will put a link in the description as always. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, the fall of Konrad Curze was something that was a long time coming. His struggle with his sanity was a battle he always seemed to be losing, especially from the viewpoints of his brothers. Sharing his father's gift of foresight, Curze became tormented by the idea of fate. But whereas Sanguinius came to decide it could be changed, for Curze, it was inescapable. He saw the assassin who comes for him in the Emperor's name, and it became his vindication. And on a barren world beyond even the light of the Astronomicon, Curze, now finally consumed by his madness, given in completely to the aspect of himself known as the Night Haunter, he awaits his end. He speaks with the Emperor, except this Emperor is a crude statue he has made out of the corpses of the dead. And Curze uses this as some form of sick confessional, laying bare his sins. And it's an extremely fascinating read throughout. I highly recommend the novel. The broken man Curze has become, the split personality, Konrad Curze and the Night Haunter. But with the confession of Nostramo's destruction, Curze asks what else could be done except condemning him to death. But still he receives no answer from the statue. So he in turn judges the Emperor guilty, lamenting his one regret, that he ever took up the name Konrad Curze. For yes, the Night Haunter was indeed a monster, but monsters are needed. The monster that is the Night Haunter brought peace to Nostramo, and it was Konrad Curze, not the Night Haunter, who sealed his fate. He smiled. If there had been anyone to see it, their heart would have been shattered to see the pain that it expressed. "Father, father, father," he said. A single tear ran down his cheek. By its progress, a little of his lost majesty was restored. The patina of corruption was rinsed away by grief. Through the grime, the caked-on blood, pure white skin, forged by artful genecraft, shone in the tear's track. Had I my time again, and freedom from fate's chains to act, I would never have become Konrad Curze. Konrad Curze was a betrayer, an unbeliever, a lunatic. But worst of all, father, Konrad Curze was weak. Night Haunter was strong. He gripped his book tightly. And in this benighted hell you have wrought, weakness is the greatest crime of all. Unburdened of this last confession, Curze shut his eyes and exposed his black teeth in a radiant smile. But the more Curze talks, the more he needs absolution. But there are no words that can eradicate his sins. A sense of pressure building before a storm pressed the air in the room to an uncomfortable thickness. From out of this rolled a thunder of words that Curze had yearned for, yet in the last sane pockets of his mind, had never expected. "You are not weak, my son." The voice drove Curze to his knees with its power. His head rang with sudden white pain. A roaring hurricane of might blasted from the figure, tossing the remains of his last victims around, and burning out the wall, exposing Curze to the light of the hateful stars. "Father," he said. His voice was fractured, small, a child's voice, pitiful. Finally, the Emperor speaks to his son. Now, of course, whether this is truly the Emperor or Curze's own mind is up to you to decide. The sheer force of it certainly implies it is, but we'll definitely see hints for both arguments throughout. But the most impactful thing for me is not the Emperor telling his son that he's not weak, but the reaction from Curze at finally, after so long, hearing his father's voice. "Father," he said. His voice was fractured, small, a child's voice, pitiful. For all the actions of the Night Haunter, the deaths, the chaos, the worst is how he has used it to overwhelm his true self, to be a mask. Now, of course, perhaps you agree with Curze that the Night Haunter is his true nature. But to me, that last line proves it is entirely a mask, something he desperately clings onto to hide from his fears. Inside, the true Konrad Curze is simply a child yearning for the help of his father. How ironic. The Primarch of Fear is simply scared himself. I am beyond your accusations, beyond speech, beyond anything. Why do you think that I speak? Your madness is finally complete. Again the words rang Curze's skull with the force of a clapper striking a bell. Still he managed to grin and raise his head to stare at the meat thing's glory, though he was forced to squint against the blazing light. No, no, you are here. I hear you. You have come to face my judgment, drawn by this offering I have made. You ever were a bloody god. Now that passage by the Emperor seems pretty out of character to me. Your madness is complete. That sounds more like Curze's faults than something the Emperor would say to me, already drawing in the doubt of is this real or not. I am no god, nor shall ever be. Curze got back up, his feathered cloak whipping in the psychic gale, his book clutched protectively to his chest. You are here. You understand your guilt. You have come to face my judgment. You cannot condemn me. I am punished enough. There is not enough punishment for what you have done. Not in this life, or in the next, shouted Curze. How dare you presume to understand what I have done, and what sacrifices I have made, and what I now must suffer? The force of the voice battered Curze back. You will never know the depths of my pain, for which I am grateful. Curze opened his eyes to peer sidelong at the figure. Why such hollow words? The voice took a moment before it returned, again with thunderous force that made Curze howl. No father wishes his sons to suffer, no matter what burdens he is forced to place upon them. Man, what a passage. That is very much my Emperor, scolding Curze for having no idea of his sacrifices, but still, after it all, being grateful Curze will never know that pain. And no father wishes to see his sons suffer, despite the burdens he places upon them. I believe the Emperor truly does feel this way. Extra spoiler warning here, but there's a line in the novel Valdor where Malcador speaks of the Emperor calling the Primarchs his sons long before he's reunited with any of them, which to me really kind of ends the whole Primarchs were just tools argument. Yes, they were absolutely made for a reason, but he did come to care for them as sons, and whether real or Curze's mind, clearly deep inside, beneath all the words of defiance, whether he wishes to admit it or not, Curze knows it. Curze laughed. An apology? What next? Will you forgive me? Sanguinius warned me you might, he scoffed. There was never anything to forgive. You acted as you were made to, but my plan was interfered with. Your insanity was not your fault, nor was it mine. Curze snarled like an animal. Lies. Everything was as you intended. There is nothing you have done wrong. If only you and I could have met one more time, I could have shown you back to the light. And that is something I've always thought about. Just what if the Emperor could have met each of the traitor Primarchs just one more time? How many would have turned back to the light when stood before the Emperor? Perhaps not all of them. But Perturabo? Most definitely. Magnus? Quite possibly. But Curze? Could the Emperor have saved his son? For all the scorn the Emperor receives for abandoning the Great Crusade, it really works out perfectly for the story, leaving us just to ponder these powerful what-if moments. Curze goes on to rage that light is anathema to him, only for the Emperor to reply, "Light is within you all. You are my sons. You are born of light. None of you are beyond redemption." Curze snarkily makes a jab about the ones who died. Nothing ever dies. Death is a state of transition. You have my forgiveness, Konrad, whether you want it or not. Never. The voice in his head would not relent, but pounded mercilessly on. More masonry fell from the outside wall. The floor collapsed behind him. You made but one mistake, my son. From it, all the evil you have perpetrated springs. You chose to believe in immutable fate. Without choice, there is nothing. The functioning of this universe depends upon choice. A single fate is one book in a library of illimitable futures. You read only one. Do you not see that you chose this? You chose to be fate's prisoner. Had you believed in your own agency, none of this would have come to pass. You chose to be the way you are, trapped, manipulated, insane. Curze's smile froze, seeming to become detached from the face that wore it, hovering menacingly about his lips as a thing unique to itself, before it collapsed with all the violence of a dying star, and his mouth became a screaming hole. No, you sent the assassins to kill me. You want me dead. You determined what fate you trod. Your belief, my son, is nothing but an excuse for your failings. And there, as we spoke about before, unlike Sanguinius, who came to believe we do have a choice with fate, Curze let it define him, choosing to believe it was set, refusing to believe in another path. Yelling his objections, Curze dives into the light of the Emperor, feeling it burning his eyes. He vents his frustration on his crude effigy, ripping and tearing it apart. But as the light fades, Curze remains crying and trembling. He can't be forgiven. He can't. He had no choice. And there, alone, Konrad Curze wraps his arms around his broken tribute to his father and waits for the voice he will never hear again. Man, what an ending. For all Konrad's done, you can't help but feel sympathy for him here. The demigod of war, Lord of Darkness, simply a crying child, a son yearning for the embrace of his father. Man, really, really good scene. One final glimpse behind the mask of the Night Haunter. Was it real? Did the Emperor truly speak with his son? Or was it all in Konrad's mind? We'll never know for sure. My opinion? Well, you know me, I like to believe it was the Emperor, reaching out to his son one last time. But realistically, it could just as easily be if not more likely, Curze's own fractured mind. The last part of Konrad Curze crying out against the monster he had become. Deep down he knew the Emperor would forgive him. And that terrified him, because it meant all along his fate was not sealed. But man, that last image of Curze hugging a broken mound of corpses in tears. A final goodbye to his father. And man, it really makes me wish for a loyalist Konrad Curze. The Primarch he could have been, redeemed by the power of the Emperor. It will never happen, but we can dream. Can you imagine a loyalist Konrad Curze returned to the current 40k timeline? My lord, that would be great. But as always guys, drop your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers. Your support really means a lot to me, it truly does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.